Okay, so this is video number 3 of a 3-part series, all on how do we feed our kids better quality food, how do we get plants into their diets, how do we get them to eat more fibrous foods, how do we get them away from processed junk food, and a big one, and close to my heart, is kids' lunches. How can we make better quality lunches for our children that don't take a huge amount of time, massively laborious, massive amount of containers, how do they pack nice and easily and condensedly, how are they nutrient dense, how do we get more fiber in there, and how can we get our kids performing better throughout the entire day? And that's the goal of today. So the first 2 videos, we talked in depth about how we get more plants into our kids, some of the more kind of underlying causes of behavioral issues and lack of attention around kids and families and how diet affects that. That was video number 2. And today, here we are in the kitchen making some fantastic, quick and easy things for lunch. So I hope you enjoy this. Please, as always, any questions or comments, please leave them below. Thanks so much. Okay, so here we are with Kiran. Hi Kiran, nice to see you.
Nice to see you again too.
So as I was saying, we're gonna talk about kids' lunches. This is something that's really important to me, and I've talked to people for a long period of time about, what can we do about feeding kids more plants, more healthy food going into lunches to school. There's a lot of limitations that I know that people have run into that they've said to me, so I have brought in a professional. Right? So Kiran has been so fantastic to give us a tremendous recipe that she's going to teach me how to make today so I can make this in my kids' lunches, and I hope this works. So thanks for being here.
No problem. Thanks for having me again. So today we're going to make a smashed chickpea salad that can be turned into a wrap or a sandwich. You can even eat it on its own if you prefer. So today we're going to be talking about different ways to use chickpeas, because chickpeas are a great protein source. And commonly, one of the biggest concerns that people have when they go plant-based is, where do we get our protein?
Right. Of course, hear it all the time.
Yes, and with kids it can be tricky because kids don't always like all of the different sources of plant-based proteins. So I wanted to show some delicious ways to transform the humble chickpea into some amazing and delicious tasting, a meal or a snack. And so we're going to work with some chickpeas today to make a chickpea salad. We're going to make chickpea cookie dough, and then we're also going to make some roasted chickpeas for you crunchy food lovers.
That's fantastic. So first thing first, if your kid doesn't love chickpeas, what do you do about that? Is there a way that chickpeas can change their texture or their flavor to make them more palatable?
So chickpeas are amazingly versatile. And I always say you want to know your kid. You want to know what you're working with and what kind of textures and flavors your child likes. So with chickpeas, the great thing is that you can either make them super crunchy if your child loves the crunchy, drier foods, in the roasted chickpea example that we'll be giving, or you can make them mashed if they like that softer, mushier, chunkier texture. This chickpea salad recipe is going to be great for them. If your children are super picky and they really don't like any texture at all, and they prefer things very mushy and pureed, you can actually throw all of this into a food processor and make it into a hummus-like texture, and that would work great for those children.
Yeah, I've found that a lot of kids love hummus.
Yes.
Right? Like surprising amount. One of my kids, as they've been growing, have a birthday party, and of course I'm going to be laying out all this vegetables and plant-based stuff. The hummus is the thing that gets finished.
Yes, because it tastes great. Right. It doesn't have texture, and a lot of kids are aversive to any kind of chunkiness or any little bits that they find in there, and so it's great. It's a great way to get that extra protein in.
Awesome, that's great. Okay, so you're going to teach me. I'm really excited. What can I do?
So we'll start off by mashing the chickpeas first. So the chickpeas were already pre-cooked, but you can also use a can. Okay. So in this recipe, we are making extra, but in a standard recipe, you'd use 3/4 of a cup of chickpeas to make one salad, one sandwich or wrap.
And Kiran has given us the recipes for these, so they will be attached to this video. So wherever you're watching this video, if you've got it from me by an email, or if you're watching on YouTube, you will see this recipe attached.
So we're going to start by mashing those, so I will give that to you.
Thank you.
And you can start mashing, and again, this is for the basic mashed recipe. If your children are extra picky, I would suggest throwing all of this into a food processor.
Okay, awesome. So as I am preparing this lunch, I've got a can of chickpeas here, but how quick and easy is this to put together, and what can I do to prepare myself to be ready to get this into lunch early in the morning?
So this is a super easy recipe because you can actually make the salad portion of it, the mash, in advance. You can make that on the weekend, make a large batch of it, and that way on those busy weekday mornings, all you need to do is throw it into a pita, throw it into a wrap, throw it into a sandwich. Quick and easy, pop it into your children's lunch.
Okay, so if I make what we're doing here, like on a Sunday afternoon or whichever, how long would it sit in the fridge for?
You can leave this in the fridge for 3 to 4 days.
Okay.
And so if you make it on Sunday, it'll last you about half the week.
Okay, awesome. This is getting a little bit dry in here. Do I put moisture or anything in here? Or?
So for moisture, we are going to add the mustard and the mayo, and we're going to add a little bit of lemon juice as well. So you could squeeze some lemon juice in there.
Okay, so half a lemon into there?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Got it. Okay.
And that helps to give it a little bit of a tang, add a little more flavor to it. We want that acidity.
Yeah, just like in hummus.
Yes, and so we will be adding mustard and mayo to this. For those of you who have children who are transitioning from a more standard American diet, I would recommend adding a little extra. So
a little extra of the mayo?
Yes, the recipe is going to call for just 1 to 2 tablespoons. But again, if your children are transitioning from a standard American diet, they're not accustomed to really eating a lot of whole foods, I would recommend just adding as much as you need to make it palatable for them.
Okay, great. And this is a vegan mayo, and you can use a traditional, I guess, mayo also, right? And what's the difference between a vegan mayo and a regular mayo?
A regular mayo is egg-based, and a vegan mayo it doesn't include the eggs. So that's really the main difference.
It's basically oil.
Yes.
Right, whipped oil.
Yes.
Right. And as we've talked about in previous conversations, oil is not really a negative food.
It's not. So this one is made with canola oil. It's not negative. You're not, you're not drinking buckets of it.
Right.
So it's not going to harm your health if you add some of this mayo to the chickpea spread.
Right, and you can see here it's starting to get a really nice creamy texture. So that is looking really, really creamy, which is what you want in a spread. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we are also going to throw in some onions, so about a tablespoon per person. And again, if your children are aversive to the taste of onions, it is a stronger taste. You can leave them out. You can omit them.
Yep.
You can sub a tiny little bit of onion powder instead, because that is not as potent as.
What about using something like a shallot?
You can use that as well.
Right.
So work with your kids' preferences. If your kids don't like these strong flavors, you can omit them, use something milder, or you can use the powder version, which you can adjust a little bit easier.
All right. So 4 big scoops?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
We're also going to add some. So today we're adding basil, but you can also add parsley, whatever herbs your children like.
Yeah. My kids both love basil, so that's great. Okay. Yeah, the basil smells fantastic.
And I'm also going to throw in a little bit of mustard. So I do have the measurements. I'm just going to squirt it out because that's how I cook.
That's great, and especially when I'm making lunches in the morning, I'm not measuring things out.
Yes. And once you get the hang of it, you'll be able to do that yourself as well.
Yeah, my kids take the bus for an hour each way to school, and it's a 20-minute drive for me to get them to the bus. So they're an hour and 40 minutes just to get to school. Wow. We're making breakfasts early. Lunches are early, quick and early, right? So, and I like to make breakfast from scratch in the morning, and I like to make a full lunch. And so, yeah, it's kind of a 4 a.m. start for me, starting breakfast. So I do like it fast. Okay, that looks awesome.
Perfect. So that's our spread. Or we can just add a little pinch of salt. We forgot to add that. So we just added a pinch of salt. And again, if your children are transitioning from the standard American diet and they're accustomed to eating higher salt foods, feel free to add a little extra salt to them. That's something you can always transition them away from slowly. The goal right now is to work with the flavors that they're accustomed to get them used to eating, chickpeas and legumes and whole plant foods. And then once they're used to the textures and the flavors, you can slowly wean them off of that, the extra mayo and the extra salt.
With things like salt, like from a kid's perspective, I understand the thing with hypertension with as people age, and hypertension is a very serious and dangerous thing when it comes to adult health.
Yes.
But how about from a kid perspective?
So from a kid perspective, it's more about not wanting to build their taste buds to prefer these high salt foods.
Because that becomes dangerous.
Yes.
Right.
And it's really about that accumulation. So you don't want them to become so accustomed to eating highly salted foods that as they grow older, that's all they eat. And we are seeing things like heart disease in children, or signs of heart disease like atherosclerosis in children as young as 11.
Yeah.
So we do know that, you know, these diets, these processed food diets, these high salt diets, high fat diets are having an impact on children's health at a young age.
Yeah.
But we're not seeing it until later.
Right. And if heart disease in an 11-year-old is something that you can't get your head around, I have a video with a guy called Sanjeev Gandhi, and Dr. Sanjeev Gandhi, and he is a surgeon of children's hearts. He's a pediatric cardiovascular surgeon, and he has seen this firsthand, 11, 12-year-olds developing streaking in their arteries, which is mind-blowing, but it is a real thing.
Yes. Again, transitioning them to a plant-based diet is going to make a huge improvement. You know, if your children are already used to eating these high-fat, high-salty foods, if you take away the animal products, you're already reducing their fat content by quite a bit.
Okay. So the other thing when we're talking about, you know, health aspect, so we've made this really yummy looking chickpea paste that could go in a sandwich and go in lots of different things. You could do this on a flatbread.
Yes.
We've put in the chickpea here as a protein.
Yeah.
And we have replaced it with something else, right? From something else.
Yes.
And that could be ham or
tuna salad.
Tuna salad is a great one. I guess that's what that would end up looking like. And so what have we done there from a health perspective? What have we improved or changed from a health perspective when we're doing something like this?
So we have drastically reduced the fat. We've drastically reduced, you know, the compounds that are going to increase inflammation in the body. So chickpeas are a plant food, which, you know, most plants or all plants are naturally more anti-inflammatory because of the higher amount of antioxidants. And it's also higher in fiber, much higher in fiber.
Right.
So that's something.
Do you think that's the big one? Do you think the fiber is the big check mark?
The fiber is the big check mark.
Right.
We know that we're not getting enough fiber. Children are not getting enough fiber. And you know, chickpeas are a great source. All other legumes, all plant foods are a great source of fiber, and that's something that animal products are lacking. And we know, you know, there's this growing body of research that fiber is really important for our gut, for our gut health, for feeding the gut microbiome, and that's then in turn linked to, you know, a whole slew of health issues that if we have poor gut health, we are then setting ourselves up for, you know, long-term negative health outcomes.
Right. Okay, so when we're talking about the most important ingredient, protein to protein. So if we've taken 3 cups of chickpeas and 3 cups of tuna, how does that, if we put them both in the ring together, who comes out the champion?
So plant foods are going to be a little bit lower in protein than animal products, but we don't need as much protein as we think we do. Most people think, especially with kids, they think that they need more protein. So for example, you know, a younger school-age child only really needs about 19 grams of protein in a day.
Right. And so how that translates, so I run ultra distance trail running. So I consume about a maximum 1.6 grams per kilogram of protein. That is going to work out to about 3/4 cups of beans at 3 meals a day is all the protein that I need to meet kind of the minimum of what I need from a protein standpoint, which is nothing, really.
It's nothing. It's really not hard at all.
Yeah.
The focus just needs to be on getting legumes or tofu into every single meal.
Right. And so if it's a small amount, so say it's like a few tablespoons of whatever it is in each meal, you're done. You're good for protein.
That's it. That's all kids need.
Right. And so when we talk about fiber and the deficiency of fiber, you know, so from what I understand is that, you know, the typical North American eats 10 to 15% of what the recommended amount is on a daily basis.
Yeah, so we need to be getting a minimum as adults 25 grams, and children it's between 10 to 20 depending on the age, and we are nowhere near that. Especially kids who are growing up on, say, a mac and cheese and chicken nugget diet. There is no fiber in that, unfortunately. And you know, I like to always mention that the gut microbiome is established in those early years. So it's really important to focus on these high fiber foods, a variety of high fiber foods. So you know, getting chickpeas in a variety of ways is a great way to, you know, up the diversity of fiber and the diversity of plants in your child's diet. And you can make it different ways, and you can also do this with other legumes as well. So you can, you know, make spreads out of black beans, out of pinto beans. You know, refried beans are a popular among kids bread.
Yeah.
And so that's something you can use as well. You can add that to a wrap or a sandwich.
Yeah. Okay, well that's the trend. So fiber is the champion. That's the winner, right? So when tuna gets knocked out, it's because of the fiber.
Yes.
Right.
And again, the higher fiber diet is going to protect them against heart disease, cancer, a whole list of diseases that we really want to focus on the long-term health outcomes and not just think about, okay, what do we like the flavor of right now in this moment.
Yeah, and I don't mean to go down the rabbit hole on this one, but fiber, the microbiome, the gut health, and attention focus, ADHD, those sort of things, there's connection there?
There is a huge gut-brain connection. So these, little microbes in our guts, they also are responsible for producing a lot of the serotonin our body makes. And so a lot of people think that serotonin, the feel-good, happy hormone, is predominantly made in the brain. It's not. It's actually predominantly made in the gut by those gut microbes. Other neurotransmitters like GABA that are great for calming anxiety, they are made in the gut, or most predominantly made in the gut. So if your child is not, feeding that diversity of gut microbes, unfortunately, it is going to affect, their cognition, their attention, their focus, their mood is a big one. So, improving and increasing the fiber in their diet is really going to make an impact on their mental health as well.
Okay. Great. Yeah, I'm sold. I've seen it firsthand, so you don't need to convince me. Okay, so we've got this fantastic mixture. Where are we going now?
So now we're going to add it to our pita, or we can throw it into a wrap. And again, you can also make this into a sandwich if your children are big sandwich lovers.
Okay.
So let's just warm a pita. So you do want to warm your pita up before you.
So we've got a preheated cast iron pan over there, so we're throwing it on the hob just to warm it up. And while we're doing that, can we do one in a wrap?
Sure, let's do that. So we're just going to throw, you can throw lettuce on there, we've got arugula here. You can also throw any type of greens that your children love.
And how would you start? Would you start with the base of the spread?
We'd start with the greens.
Okay, so start with the greens.
So throw the greens.
My kids love arugula, so we've started with some arugula.
Just going to throw some arugula on there.
Okay.
And then we're just going to take a few scoops of the salad here.
Okay, so over top of that.
Yeah, and we're just going to, and again, if your children like more stuffing or less stuffing, feel free to make it according to their preferences, and then you're just going to turn that into a wrap. Now for younger kids, I like to fold both sides and cut the middle. But for older kids, you can just make it like that, and it's super easy. Just smush it out there.
Okay.
Just spread out the chickpeas inside, and it's a super yummy wrap.
Yeah, it's fast to put together. That was easy. So yeah, if that was pre-done and ready to go, you've got you're talking
less than a minute.
Really, you're talking seconds to get the core of that. And say that for me, that weighs probably 150 grams. I would eat 3 of those.
Yeah, or you could
lunch.
stuff it more, so you could actually add more stuffing to it.
Yeah, fair. But yeah, sometimes I find when I overstuff, things explode. Right? So I would rather do 2 for the way I put lunches together. I'd rather do 2 separate wraps, keep them separate. I also find my son, who's 11, he doesn't eat that quickly, and he loves to eat this type of food, but he does it slowly. So if I make 2, he has 2 different times instead of feeling he's not finished or whichever. And I find that when I make 2 smaller sandwiches, they get eaten. If I make 1 big one, it gets half eaten. If that makes sense, he eats more volume if I make smaller sandwiches.
So the reason for that is children generally, they will get overwhelmed with large portions. And so this is something that I advise my clients as well. When you do introduce new foods, start with small portions. Think of it this way. If you put a large serving in front of them, oops, we don't want that to burn. You put a large serving in front of them, it's like asking them to climb Mount Everest. Whereas if you put, a tiny little small serving, they're much more likely to try something new if it doesn't seem as daunting. If it's just a small portion and they think, oh, that's not so bad, I can easily eat that, they're much more likely to be willing and open to try it.
Right. Is that why they like finger food?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so would you cut this open or tear this open and stuff it? Or how would you go?
We would cut it open in half, and then we would stuff it, and we'd stuff it with both the greens and...
All right, so we'll take a little bit of that top off.
And the salad as well. And again, if your children don't like greens, it's steaming hot.
That's great.
If they are transitioning from that standard American diet, you can omit the greens at first, or you can add in iceberg lettuce or romaine lettuce, or kind of that juicier, more bland greens that kids generally tend to be more accepting of. But our kids are used to eating this way, so we're throwing in some arugula.
Yeah, my kids love the spiciness of arugula. They like the spiciness of anything.
My daughter as well is used to her bitter greens from basically when she started eating.
Right.
So she'll also gladly eat some arugula.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So they're stuffed in. That looks fantastic, right? Whole wheat pita.
And again, super easy. You just warm it up. It doesn't take that long. Stuff it and you're good to go.
Great.
And
awesome.
the great thing about the chickpea salad spread is that it doesn't need to be warm. It can be eaten cold, just like a tuna salad.
Yeah.
So it's great for lunch boxes because you don't need to worry about, the food being too cold for them to eat. It's actually meant to be cold.
Good. And it's fully school friendly, which is
it's
great.
nut free, it's school friendly.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Okay, well that is tremendous. That's super yummy and makes me excited to eat one of those. And so we'll move on now to...
We can move on to the, would you like to do the roasted chickpeas or?
Roasted chickpeas are great. Let's do that. Okay, so roasted chickpeas are next. Okay, so what are we doing?
So we're making roasted chickpeas, and these are super easy, super simple to make. You can use canned chickpeas if you are short on time, but you can also cook your own. And if you are cooking your own, what I like to do is if I'm making, say for example, the cookie dough balls or the chickpea salad wraps or anything else with chickpeas, whatever is left over from my home cooked chickpeas, I will use them to make roasted chickpeas. It's a great way to just use them up.
Awesome. And you use a pressure cooker to cook your chickpeas?
I do, yes.
Awesome.
So all you need to do is spread them out onto a baking pan. And we're gonna add a little bit of sea salt, we're gonna add a little bit of black pepper, and you're going to add whatever seasonings you prefer. So today we're going to add this delicious homemade barbecue sauce that...
So Chef Cade made a seasoning video that you'll find on our YouTube channel, and this is the barbecue sauce from Chef Cade.
But you can also, if you don't have barbecue sauce, or if it's not your children's or your favorite flavor, you can also season this with poultry seasoning, with taco seasoning. So if you've got kids who love Mexican food, taco seasoning would be great. If you are going to use a dry seasoning, however, you do need to add a little bit of avocado oil just to help it stick and to keep it from drying out. And I prefer avocado oil for these because it is a more bland, tasteless oil compared to olive oil or any other kind of bland oil would work as well.
Like grapeseed oil?
Yes, that's
canola
bland
oil.
as well. Yes, they are all bland enough where they won't change the flavor.
Okay.
So we're just going to start with, it's very simple, so we just sprinkle it over.
Yeah, roasted chickpeas are a ridiculously simple snack.
Yes.
My son specifically loves these, so I'll put like a cup of them into, once they're dried, I find if they're moist at all and I put them into a container, they'll get a little bit soggy. So I'll dry them really, really well, get the lid on, and send a cup for him for a snack. If he has a short day at school, that's all that I'll send, and it just works brilliantly well.
Do the pepper.
Right, so cracked black pepper.
And if your children don't like black pepper, you don't need to add it.
There we go.
And then we're just literally going to just stir it around, make sure it's all coated.
Great. And Kiran asked me to preheat the oven at 400 degrees.
And they're super quick. You only need to put them in there for between 10 to 15 minutes.
Great.
So once it's all coated.
10 to 15 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Awesome. And you just kind of coat liberally, coat like you want them to,
Yes,
like however
coat like you want them to. Just make sure it's kind of evenly coated.
But I guess the more coating, the longer the cook, yeah?
Yes, because especially if you're using a liquid seasoning, it is going to add more moisture.
Okay. So if you had like some herbes de Provence or something, a pre-made dry mix, some oil, those dried herbs, salt, pepper, done.
You would drizzle the oil first, your seasoning, salt, pepper, and then you're done. Super easy. Then you just want to spread it out. So it's a single layer. You don't want it clumped and layered on top of each other.
And would you recommend to have this like in the house all the time, like as a snack, ready to go?
Yes, this is a great snack. You can actually buy if you're really short on time and you just don't have the time or patience to make these, not that it takes long, as you can see. You can also buy store-bought versions, so you can get store-bought roasted chickpeas in different flavors. You can get roasted lentils, which is also a great high-protein legume.
Fairly expensive though, yeah?
Yes,
comparatively
it is more expensive.
What
this is much more economical, so that's why we're trying to show you how easy it is to just make it yourself.
What do you think this costs, like 85 cents?
Probably.
Yeah, fair. We're like a bag, because my son again loves them. I have bought this for him, and you're spending $6 on a bag of 2 cups, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So definitely more economical to make it yourself.
Great.
So we're just gonna pop these into the oven.
Great, so 400 degree oven for 10 to 15 minutes. There we go. Okay, so roasted chickpeas. We've cooked these a little longer than you would have if you did like a dry seasoning?
Yes, if we do a dry seasoning, 10 to 15 minutes is usually good. But if you do a wet seasoning like we did, we actually, because I checked it, we needed a little bit longer. So about 20 to 30 minutes would be better.
Okay, great. So they've been in there for a good long time. And we will pull them out.
So as you can see, they've shrunk. That is to be expected because when they are freshly cooked, they've absorbed a lot of water and we're sort of draining that water out again when we bake them.
Yeah, they're almost back to the same size as where we started with them.
Yeah.
So I made these ones from scratch. I put them in the pressure cooker. All right.
And you can hear that clinking noise. They're definitely harder and they're crispier than just freshly cooked chickpeas. And the great thing about these is that you can tailor them to your kids or your family's preferences. So if your children don't like especially dry textures, you can bake them a bit for less time to leave a little bit of moisture in them. If your children love that dry, crispy, crunchy texture, you can bake them for even longer and make them as crunchy as you like.
Yummy. Crunchy. This would be really, really good on a kale Caesar salad.
Yes. So these can be great as a topping. They can be great on their own, just as a snack, a finger food. And in your kids' lunch boxes, you can just put about a quarter cup of these in there, and or a tablespoon or two, and they've got a good source of protein.
Awesome. They're great. They're mild. There's not much salt. There's no sugar. They've got a really nice, faint barbecue sort of flavor to them, which is what we season them with them. They're great. So that's great. So 25 to 30 minutes in the oven.
Yes, and you can adjust the seasoning. So if you want more flavor, you can add more of that sauce, more of the seasoning. If you prefer less flavor, if your kids are used to that beige food blend diet, you can add less seasoning.
Awesome. Great. Okay, let's move on. And now we're moving on to
chickpea cookie dough balls. So this can actually be eaten just with a spoon as cookie dough, or you can roll them into balls.
Okay.
For lunch boxes, I suggest rolling them into balls.
Okay. Awesome.
So we are going to, our key star today is the chickpea.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with 2 cups of chickpeas that we just add them into a food processor.
Okay.
And then we're going to add, so we're using nut butter, we're using peanut butter today because we are not sending these off to school. But to make them school safe, you can use sunflower butter. And that way they are school friendly and they still taste great.
Yep.
So we're just going to add that to the food processor.
And I found sunflower butter, my kids will eat it. They don't love it the same way, but when I have a decent amount of sweetener like maple syrup in it, it all seems to blend together pretty well.
Yes, it does. And so when we add the chickpeas and the maple syrup and the vanilla, it does mask that taste.
Right. Yeah.
And then we're
a little bit, the tiny bit bitter, right? Just a little.
Yes, it's a little bit. It's different than peanut butter, but definitely if you mix it and blend it into other things, it's more palatable and kids are more willing to accept it.
Okay.
And it does add to the protein content as well.
Yeah.
So next I'm going to add a quarter cup of maple syrup.
So we've got a half cup of peanut butter,
Yes.
or nut butter, or seed butter.
Yes.
2 cups of chickpeas, and a quarter cup of maple syrup.
Quarter cup of maple syrup.
I use dark maple syrup because I find it has a lot more flavor.
Yes, it does.
Yep.
It also has more antioxidants.
Okay.
So I'm also going to add a teaspoon of vanilla. So you can use vanilla extract, or we've got some vanilla paste here.
Yep.
I'll just add that in as well. And
or you can use vanilla pod, right? Right off of the
Yes, you can
stock.
use that as well.
Yeah.
And this nut butter is unsalted. So if you have salted butter, perfect, just use that as is.
Yep.
But because this is unsalted, I'm just going to add a pinch of salt as well. And we're going to blend that all up.
Great. I'll grab a spatula there and we'll clean that guy there. So take that one, get the last little bit of that peanut butter and maple syrup out of there. There we go. Okay.
And then we're just going to blend it all up.
Okay. So, and we're going to put it on to pulse. We're just going to turn it on and blend it.
We're going to turn it on and just let it go.
Should I be scraping down the sides at all?
We're just going to wait until it is mostly done, and then we'll scrape down the sides and give it another run. So now would be a good time to scrape down the side.
Okay. So we'll scrape down the sides. Yeah, so it's getting a pretty
have a doughy
thick
texture.
Yeah, the chickpeas, I find when you blend chickpeas, they like to really get thick very quickly. Yeah, so it's very much like cookie dough. That's awesome. Have you ever baked this off?
I have made chickpea cookies with a different recipe.
Yeah.
And so you can actually make chickpea cookies. You can make chickpea blondies as
Okay.
well. There are a lot of sweet chickpea recipes that you can make as a dessert or just as a treat to add into your kid's lunchbox.
Yeah, okay.
So once it's kind of good and really mashed and pureed,
What do you
I think
think?
it's looking pretty good. So
All right, so
it looks just like cookie dough. Then we're
looks
going to
just like
just add
cookie
a few
dough.
pulses and add some chocolate chips to the mixture.
do we take this out and put this in a bowl and mix that, or we do it right in
No,
here?
we just pulse it a few times.
Oh, we
and we'll-
pulse it,
Yes,
okay.
so we just add half a cup of the chocolate. Of course, if you want to add a little more, exactly, I'm not going to measure exactly, we can add a little extra.
Right.
Nobody ever complains about extra chocolate.
Fair. Actually, my daughter complains about extra chocolate. She's not a chocolate fan. Yeah, she's one of those savory people. I don't understand, but she is.
So we're just going to pulse it a few times just to blend the chocolate in there.
I'm not lined up.
I just do like a dab here.
Yeah, okay.
Just like, yeah, that's actually looking pretty
That's
blended.
good?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
Great. So we've got the dough. It is looking like so.
And again, you could eat this with a spoon, just as cookie dough. But
It smells like cookie dough. It smells just like cookie
But
dough.
to make it more lunchbox friendly, and just if you want to pack it to go, you want to roll it
Actually,
into balls.
this part here fell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tasty.
That tastes like cookie dough.
Yes, and it's a high protein sweet treat.
Now I put a tiny bit, a titch more salt for my flavoring, because you want it to taste like cookie dough.
Yes.
Yeah, it's stunning how similar it tastes to cookie dough.
Yes.
Like really. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm actually quite
That is the
surprised.
idea.
Yeah, like I use a lot of chickpeas in a lot of things, and I can usually identify that chickpea-ness.
Yes.
Your
You
chickpea-ness?
can't. You do not taste. A lot of people, when they hear me, I give this recipe to clients often, and when I tell them chickpea cookie dough, they think, "Oh, our kids are not going to eat that." And I say, "No, just try it. Trust me."
Yeah.
They love it.
Yeah, this is like my son goes nuts for uncooked dough. Like I would need to keep this from him.
Yes.
Right.
So we're just going to roll this into balls now. Or do you want to show them how we roll into balls, or just?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're gonna roll this into balls now. So we'll do that here. So, okay, so cookie dough balls.
Yes, so now we're just going to use our cookie scoops to make little balls out of them. You can do this with your hands. You can get your kids involved. It's a great way to get your kids involved in cooking. And you can also make them according to your child's preferences and how old your child is. If you've got little ones, you can make them a bit smaller for them. If you've got bigger kids who want a giant, cookie dough ball that looks like an ice cream scoop, you can go for that as well. And it's super easy. You just scoop it up. Oops. And then you can make them whatever size you want to.
All right, Kiran, this is awesome. So these cookie dough balls are to die for. They're amazing. So it's super simple, absolutely fantastic, great texture, like seriously cookie dough texture. So good on you.
Thank you. And these, are one example of how you can make a high protein legume-based treat for your kids, a sweet treat. You can also make chickpea blondies, chickpea cookies. You can use other legumes, so you can make black bean brownies. You can make black bean chocolate cocoa balls, like energy bites. You can make, a lot of people have tried or made energy bites out of nuts and dates. It's a similar concept, except we're using legumes instead of nuts to make it school friendly.
Awesome. I think it's a fantastic idea. Being able to send those to school, that's awesome.
Yes, and it's, you can rest assured your kids are getting a good source of protein, because a common, issue with kids is that they may just snack on carbs all day, and then they get those blood sugar highs and lows.
Processed
and they crash.
carbs mostly, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and so this is great to make sure that their blood sugar levels stay stable while they're at school, so they can learn and focus
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming in and spending this time. It's been great to give me some ideas of what I'm going to be able to put into the kids' lunch coming September, and I hope this has been helpful. How can people get a hold of you if they need a bit of help from somebody like yourself?
So I have a website. It's www.key2healthnc.com, or you can also reach me over at Instagram at Key2HealthNC, and I also have a Facebook group, the Raising Healthy Plant Powered Kids Facebook group.
Which is awesome. I'm a member of that Facebook group. That's how Kiran and I originally met. She has fantastic information on there, so if you just want to be a wallflower and just kind of watch what she's doing and see the things she's doing before you engage, she's constantly putting out really great information, small bite-sized bits of information about how to feed your kids and your family better plant-based food. So thanks so much. I hope you enjoy.
Bye.
Bye.